If you're looking to teach English here in Italy, make sure you watch this video because today I'm going to tell you how to look for a good language school and what you should be looking for. Let's get started. Via. Ciao a tutti. Hi everyone. Welcome to David's Doses of Italy, and on my channel I talk about everything Italy, but more specifically I give practical tips for vacation, working here, and living here. So today is actually part 2 from my last video where I talked about teaching English here in Italy, and today we're going to go a little bit more in depth and I'm going to try and help you find the right school for you. Stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to show you a school advertised on TEFL.com, and we're going to take a look at it and I'm going to give you my opinion whether I think it would be a good fit for a new teacher or even just somebody looking for teaching jobs in Italy. I've worked in numerous language schools for the past 10 years. I've worked here in Rome and I've also worked down in Campania, so I have a lot of experience in this subject. Before we get into the main part of the video, I just want to say that despite the fact that we're still dealing with the coronavirus, although nothing like it was before, I do see advertisements for schools for the upcoming school years, so there's the point of this video. Just to be clear, today's topic deals with the private schools here in Italy, and the strategies and the tips that I'm going to give you pertain to those types of schools. Now, in regards to September, both private and public schools, we don't know what's going to happen. The school year will definitely continue, but whether it's going to be a mixture of online and in person, we still don't know what's going to happen. It's up in the air. There are also two important things that I want to reiterate from the last video, which I feel needs repeating here. The first one is in regards to the pay. And just from my own personal experience and from what I've seen in the past 10 years, you can expect to earn between 900 and 1600 euros net per month. The second one is you must be legal here, and do not expect any schools to help you with your legal status, visas, permessi di soggiorno. For more information about that, do check out my previous video. Where exactly should you work in Italy? Well, fortunately in this country there are no shortage of language schools, but finding a quality one is a whole other issue, really. So do you choose between the north, central, or the south? Again, I've worked in the south and I've also worked here in Rome, in the center part of the country. And to be honest, there's good schools everywhere. I mean, I don't want to generalize and say that you're better off in the north or you're better off in the south, really. It just depends on the conditions and the type of job that's being offered. Now, if we're talking about Italy, and historically speaking, the north has always been a bit more prosperous than the south. But to be honest, that's really a moot point because, I've looked at a lot of job offers throughout the years, and I've seen well-paying jobs both in the north and both in the south. So again, it's all relative. I'm no expert on Italian sociology, but let's just say that culturally wise, there is a significant difference between working in the north and working in the south. I think that if you want to work in the south, you can expect a bit more relaxed pace of life, more relaxed mentality. In the north is somewhat the opposite. I mean, there's always exceptions to every single region here in Italy, but in a general sense, that's my opinion. I think they're a bit more punctual in the north. The next topic is what type of school should you work for? Should it be a chain school where you can find them all over Italy, or should it be a much smaller type of school with maybe just one school in existence? I mention these two types of schools because this is where I have my experience. I've had good and bad experiences with both. I think I prefer something a bit larger, and the reason why is I tend to find a bit more organization, and I don't know, it just suits my needs really. The school where I work now is a big name school, but it's a franchise, meaning it pays to use the name. So in essence, it's kind of both really. I guess that's the best scenario. I think though that at the end of the day, it just depends who's running it. Now, the pay is what it is, okay? But what's even more important than that is really how you're being paid. And from my experience, there are two types of methodologies. There's the hourly rate, and then there's getting paid monthly. Between the two, I much prefer the latter. Now, if you can avoid it, I really do not recommend getting paid hourly. And the reason why is that when you teach in this country, there are periods where you don't work. This could be during the Christmas holidays, the Easter holidays, the summer, So in essence, when you're not there working, you don't get paid. So that has a lot of disadvantages unless you're making an insane amount of money, but I wouldn't count on it. The bulk of the contracts that I've seen are a tempo determinato, which in English means a specified period of time, and this usually runs between September, October to May, June. That's not a bad scenario, really. But what you really want to get is a contract which is a tempo indeterminato, meaning a permanent contract. And the best one that you can get is one that pays you all year, even in the summertime. The best kind of contract that you want to get is something called an in se. That's what I have right now. And in essence, this is a contract which is a tempo indeterminato. And what I like about this contract is that you're pretty much getting the same kind of work contract as a public school teacher. It's not quite as good as what they get, but it's pretty close. You get paid all year, and that's great. You get a 13th month, which is called tredicesima. And also the rate of pay and the amount of hours you worked are determined on a national level. So it's not determined by a boss who may or may not like you. So, now, granted, I wasn't offered this contract immediately after I started working at the school where I work right now. I had to pay my dues. But in my second year of employment, I was given this contract, and yeah, I was pretty happy about that. It is good job security. But when you're looking for a school, I wouldn't count on seeing that immediately. But let me repeat, do not get paid hourly. I mean, granted, if you can't find anything else and you need employment, then yeah, take it, okay. But that's not something you want to really aspire to. Now, as far as actually getting the job and contacting the school, I think you'll find that this applies to any job scenario, if you're job hunting for any kind of job, really. In essence, you've got to put the work in. You've got to Google the school, you've got to look at the reviews, you have to see if it's got a website. You have to get an overall feel for the school. And also, when you finally get an interview, you want to really know who they are and have questions for them. Because this way, it shows that you really care, you're really interested, and you want to see if you're going to be a good fit for the school. But again, this applies to any job scenario. When you apply for the job, should you already be in Italy, or can you actually be hired from abroad? I've done both, to be honest. But if I had to pick one, I would say that it's probably better if you're already here. And the reason why is because between two candidates who are applying, one applying locally and one applying from abroad, they're probably going to go with the one who's already here, unless the other person from abroad is clearly the better candidate and has plans to arrive in Italy in the near future. But I have been hired from abroad, and it is possible. I've been hired for 2 schools abroad. I almost got hired for another one, but then they changed their mind. So you never know. It definitely helps, really. A lot of the schools that I've seen advertised, they do want experience. To make up for lack of experience, I think what would be helpful is if you are a newly certified teacher. In other words, if you have a TEFL or if you have a CELTA certificate, and if you can really sell yourself, if you can really convince them that you are the right person for the job. And I think at that point, your personality and just how you impress them at the interview is key. If you do see a school that says no experience necessary, we will train, I think it's better if they ask for credentials. The absolute no-no would be if you see a school that says no experience necessary, we don't care if you have credentials or degrees. That to me sounds like a pirate school. One of the other biggies that they're looking for here in Italy is experience with the Cambridge examination system. This is the CAT/PAD first certificate. Teaching experience is required, yes, but this is the other big one. So if you have any kind of experience with Cambridge exam preparation, they're looking for you. The other biggie that they're looking for, and this has not always made me happy, but is experience teaching young learners. In other words, kids, even kids as young as 5, 6, 7. I haven't taught any younger than 6, 5, I think, but the bulk of my teaching with kids has been between 7 and teenagers. The reason why this is so sought after is, my hunch is that the schools, they make a lot of their money from kids' lessons. As a matter of fact, right over here, you can't see it, but there is a kids' school. I prefer to teach mainly adults and teenagers, although I have done kids, but a school where they just teach kids, no thanks, really. And that's a shame, because I can actually just walk right across there, but fate would have it. Also, should you work in a big city or should you work in a smaller town? That really depends on you. I mean, there's some people who are perfectly comfortable living in a small town, whereas others would go nuts and they have to be around people in the big city. However, and objectively speaking, if you're just starting off in this country teaching, then you might want to consider the big city, at least at first. And the reason why is because at least here you've got a variety of jobs and you've got a variety of places to live. In a smaller town, your choices are somewhat limited. So if you get hired in a small town and you don't like the school, or there's not other places to live that you like, then you are a bit restricted. And then, once you find out what you like and what you don't like, you can venture out and work in a small town. And at that point, hopefully, you've scraped up enough money to buy a car, because when you work in the smaller towns, public transportation might be scarce and you need to get around, and you probably want to explore too. All right, let's go and take a look at a school that I found at TEFL.com. I'm not going to show you the name of the school, but I think you can find it if you do a simple search on that website. But I just prefer not to say the name of the school, just for liability purposes. Right, so the school that I picked is somewhat at random, but more specifically, I was looking for a school in the south, and the one that I picked is in a town called Pomigliano d'Arco. It's near Naples. I've only been there once, so I really can't say much about it. I chose the south because I kind of wanted to debunk the myth that you can make more in the north than you can in the south. Like I keep saying, it depends. Okay, so here we are at our sample school. This is the school from Pomigliano d'Arco. I've hidden the name of the school, as I mentioned before, so you can easily find this on TEFL.com if you want. Anyway, the first thing we notice is experience 1 year. So yeah, this is probably not a school where you can approach them with no experience, but you never know really. But it does specify 1 year experience. The next thing we see is the job summary, 25 hours per week minimum. That's pretty standard, although that word minimum does catch my attention. So they may ask you to work a little bit more than 25 hours a week. That you'll have to check at the interview. And then next we have 5 days per week between 3 p.m. and approximately 8:15 p.m. That's also pretty standard. These are more or less the hours that I work. Sometimes I work before 3, and I frequently work until 9 p.m. So that looks pretty normal. Last but not least, in this section, we see the pay. And from personal experience, I can tell you that this is not always mentioned in a job advertisement. So this is actually pretty good. The pay, as you can see, is 1,269 euros gross per month. And the key word here is gross. So what that means is this is not exactly what you're going to be getting net. I really don't know what your net pay is going to be, but you can expect to find anywhere between, if I had to guess, between 1,000 and 1,100, although I could be wrong. This depends on your tax bracket. But anyway, please note the word gross here. But anyway, this is clearly not a job where you're paid per hour. You are given a guaranteed monthly salary, and so this I like. So moving on to the next section, we have qualifications. CELTA or TEFL ESOL certificate is required. That doesn't surprise me. That's pretty standard in a lot of job advertisements. Confident, in capital letters, and being able to have fun with young children is paramount. So yeah, this just further reinforces what I was saying before, in that if you don't have experience, then you need to really make up in confidence in your personality. And this school really seems to place a lot of importance on your interaction with young children. With that said, this is probably not a school where I would apply. I mean, I have experience with young children. I've gotten better throughout the years. But children as young as 3, I think at that point you're more of a babysitter. Something else from this section that I want to point out is where it says that you need to have rapport with your class. And that is absolutely true. When you are a teacher, the relationship that you have with your students is very important, because I've had situations where there have been students who maybe were not the best behaved, maybe they gave other teachers problems, but with me, that I had no problems, And that's just simply down to me at least trying to create a good rapport with them and myself. And it is paramount, I must say. We need people who care about people. In other words, what that means is, are you just there for a paycheck, or are you genuinely concerned about the welfare and the learning for your students? Next, we've got the famous salary and benefits. This is what everybody wants to ask about. So, accommodation is provided in a 2-bed shared flat. I can tell you from personal experience that it is actually not common for the school to find an apartment for you and actually pay for it. So that's actually pretty good. We also have a shared flat. Now that depends on you. It depends if you're willing to put up with living with somebody else. I'm a bit older, so for me that wouldn't be a good situation. If that is a problem, then I would ask the school if it's possible for you to live by yourself. But my hunch tells me that the deal is you get the accommodation paid. They pay for it, but in exchange you've got to live with somebody else. On that note, I can only speak for myself, but in all the places where I've lived and I've had to live with other people, usually it did not go well. And what usually happened is I was stuck with people who were disrespectful. Disrespectful in the sense that they didn't clean and they weren't quiet when you wanted to sleep. So it's really a crapshoot. The advantage, however, of living with somebody else is that you pay the utility bills and the internet, and it's split in 2 ways. So that is good. Reading the rest of this section, it does seem like a fairly organized school in terms of teaching and also teacher welfare. So this looks promising, but I would have to gauge that meeting them in person or at an interview. For the record, I have never had airport pickup. Okay, so moving on to the next section, let's jump to the line where it says lessons are held in our 3 schools in Pomigliano, Ottaviano, and Portici. This to me indicates that this is a small chain school, and they probably started with 1 school, and then business probably went very well, and they were able to open up 2 more schools. So this to me is a positive sign. The only thing I don't like in this line is where it says that you may have to work sometimes in the public schools. And with that said, I would ask them if this is in the morning or if these are afternoon classes, because what usually happens in the afternoon in public schools is that these are extra lessons that students pay for, and you are probably not going to find the full class size as opposed to the morning. In other words, you're not going to be teaching 25 to 30 kids, which is pretty standard in the morning. So if the idea of teaching that many kids is a problem, then I would clarify this point. The fact that they are willing to drive you around, to drop you off and pick you up is very good, because in this particular part of Italy, I don't know how good public transportation is, and I'm pessimistic in regards to this particular area. You may work more than 25 hours per week. In my opinion, that's a very strong possibility. And if that happens, I would request to work no more than 30 hours per week. That's Monday to Friday, 6 hours per day. And to be honest, when you're a teacher, that's a lot of hours to work in one day. The last line of this section where it says 2 weeks off paid at Christmas, 1 week Easter, etc., etc. This is really good, actually, because these are times of the year where there's simply no work. And this really further emphasizes my point where you really shouldn't work per hour, because if you're not working, if you're not there at the school teaching, then you don't get paid. Whereas when you have a guaranteed monthly salary, then in essence, you're getting paid during this period, so it's nice. So that's my overall evaluation of this school. Would I apply it for this position? I think I may have applied for it in the past, really. Overall, it is pretty good. I think there's more positives here than negatives. But like any school, like any job, really, you have to get a feel for it. You have to see how the interview goes, and you have to just see if you are an overall good fit for the school. Okay, so that's going to do it for today's video. I really hope you liked it. I hope you found it helpful. And my goal was to give you the benefit of my experience to help you choose the best school for you. If by chance something wasn't clear, if you have any questions, or if you simply want to reach out, I'm more than happy to help. So leave me a comment below. If you haven't done it already, make sure you hit the like button, and also make sure you subscribe if you enjoyed today's video and you want to see more of my videos. Grazie mille per l'attenzione. Ci vediamo alla prossima. That's all for today. I'll see you next time.